When people imagine the fall of Rome, they usually picture scenes like barbarians storming the gates, armies falling apart, or schemes unfolding inside palace walls. But the truth is actually a bit different. Great empires don't usually collapse from the outside, they fall apart from within. And one of the biggest factors behind that collapse is money. And that's exactly what happened to Rome. For centuries, the backbone of Rome's economy was a silver coin called the denarius. People trusted it. Soldiers were paid with it, merchants traded with it, and ordinary people stored their wealth in it. In short, it wasn't just money, it was trust. But as the empire grew, so did its expenses. Armies, wars, roads, buildings, food supplies. Eventually, the state began to run out of money. Raising taxes was difficult, so they chose an easier path. They started reducing the amount of silver in the coins. At first, no one really noticed. But over time, the denarius lost almost all of its value. From the outside, it looked the same, but in reality, it was hollow. And once people realized this, everything changed. Prices began to rise rapidly. Things that once cost 1 denarius now cost several. Soldiers demanded higher pay, and merchants no longer wanted to accept the currency. In some places, people even started going back to barter. Because there was one simple truth. When money loses trust, the system begins to collapse. The state responded by minting even more money. But instead of solving the problem, this only made things worse. They were stuck in a vicious cycle. By the 3rd century, things were completely out of control. Emperors were changing rapidly, civil wars were breaking out, and the economy was collapsing. The government tried to fix prices, but that didn't work either. Black markets grew, and the crisis deepened. In the end, Rome had to abandon the denarius entirely. Later, they introduced a more reliable gold coin. It helped stabilize things a bit, but
then it was already too late. The Western Roman Empire had been severely weakened. So what does this have to do with today? Actually, more than you might think. Throughout history, similar patterns have repeated again and again. When governments face crises, they often turn to devaluing their currency. It may seem like it works in the short term, but in the long run, ordinary people always pay the price. For example, in 1920s Germany, people had to carry their wages in sacks because the money had become nearly worthless. In Zimbabwe, prices were doubling almost every day. Today, the situation isn't exactly the same, but the logic hasn't really changed. Money in most places is no longer tied to something like gold. It's based entirely on trust. And here's the key point. If that trust is shaken, everything can change very quickly. The most important lesson from this story is simple. Money is just a tool. What gives it value is people's belief in it. And when that belief disappears, the system itself starts to break down. Rome learned this the hard way. History may not repeat itself exactly, but similar mistakes are often made. That's why looking at the past is still one of the best ways to understand the present.